Hey everyone, this is Car Ray Rob, where I'm Ray.
And I'm Rob, and we want to welcome you to a brand new episode of A Copy of a Copy.
A copy of a copy. A copy of a copy. A copy of a copy. A copy of a copy. A copy of a copy. A copy of a copy. A copy of a copy. A copy of a copy. A copy of a copy.
That's right, everyone. You were listening to our new episode of A Copy of a Copy. And Rob, I'm really kind of excited about this month. We're doing something we've never really done
That's
before.
true.
Before we explain that, explain to people what we usually do.
Absolutely. Here on A Copy of a Copy, Ray and I, we revisit remakes and originals. Kind of
Yes.
break them down, see why they were made, find different kinds of remakes. And maybe defend the idea of the remake
Yes,
a little
sometimes
bit.
that gets trashed on.
It does, like just instinctually, inherently. But you know what? Sometimes they have been some good remakes, and we have found them. I
I
think.
believe we have.
But we've also found some bad ones.
Yes, we found the cash grabs,
We
but
found
we
the cash grabs.
we've had this ability to kind of name a lot of these remakes that we have found so far. We found a lot more different kinds than I thought.
Sure.
And I think we kind of have a new one here
Oh, do you think
in
so?
a way, because I feel like the original movie is trash and the remake is making it better.
Yeah. So you mentioned it's actually funny. Okay, so before we say this, there's two new things about this episode. One, the biggest one, is that we are going to see a movie in the movie theater. So you guys are going to be waiting a while, which is the first time we've ever done this
Yes.
for an episode.
It's live.
It is in the theaters right now. You can get up off your couch and go see it. But the other thing is, as Ray pointed out, this is a movie that the original is a movie that Ray hated,
Yes.
and I actually really enjoyed.
Yes, we're talking about Masters of the Universe.
Exactly.
He-Man. We
He-Man.
have the power.
Exactly.
And I am really looking forward to this new movie.
Yeah.
I think that's got enough of the nostalgia kick for me from what I've seen from the trailers. I think that it's embracing the campiness of He-Man, a show that was based off a toy line,
Yeah.
which is what I felt like the original couldn't really do for me.
And so that's going to be kind of the interesting part of it. There is I think a technological element, and we've talked about that with other ones as well, but other remakes. But I think this one is definitely going to be one that maybe embodies it more than maybe anything we've done before. Is the idea that the technology wasn't necessarily where it needed to be to make the movie that they wanted to make.
Right.
And
that's why they had to base everything on Earth instead of Eternia. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And in the 1987 Masters of the Universe, it starred Dolph Lundgren, Frank Langella, a young Courtney Cox, which was pretty cool,
Yeah.
Billy Barty.
God rest.
God rest. There is, I think a quaint element to it. By the way, they swung for the fences for what they got. And there's big set pieces. As far as like the I remember the throne room for Skeletor and stuff like that. They really did try to do what they could. But yes,
Frank Langella actually gets a lot of kind of praise.
he's probably one of the better parts of the movie. I'll agree with that.
for just going out there and just totally embracing Skeletor. And I know I've seen in docs like he did that because his son was such a huge He-Man fan. He basically did this for his son.
Right.
And you know what? I will admit, maybe there's a chance when we go back and revisit Masters, maybe I like it more
This could be a
now.
hell of movies for you in a way,
Yeah.
which is kind of interesting because you could come out appreciating the movie more than what you did as a kid, and I could come. But the opposite is true because it has been a very long time since I've watched it, so I could walk out thinking, "Man, this was a lot worse than I remember." Because we on Hello Movies, if you listen to that show, that happens a lot.
Quite a bit,
that
quite
happens
a
more
bit.
than we would like.
And of course, there's also we don't know anything about this new He-Man movie except what we've seen in trailers, and trailers are they're trailers for a reason. They show you the best parts, and there's a lot of stuff in the middle that might not be as good. So
Yeah. Well, because there is an Earth element to the new one
Yeah.
as well, where He-Man finds himself on Earth. He has a job and all
Yeah.
of this stuff, and then he has to make his way back to Eternia. But it does seem like the movie takes place a good bit in Eternia, where the 87 one doesn't.
I
you
feel
said, it's
like
them coming to Earth.
Yeah, I'm hoping it's the opposite. I'm hoping like they went with the that approach where kind of in reference to the original Masters of the Universe, but they like flip the roles on its head, where like the first 10 minutes is on Earth, and then the rest of the movie's in Eternia. That's what I'm hoping happens.
Yeah. Yeah, so it says, like, here, just on the Wikipedia, it says that the new one, the film follows Prince Adam's return to his home planet Eternia to save it and the rest of the universe from the evil forces of Skeletor. Which, again, it's a very simple concept, but it's He-Man. You don't expect much, beyond that.
No, but you expect cool costumes, great side characters, just like the toy, like the action figure line, right? Like this comes from action figure line, where it was all about these weird like Skeletor minions, basically, and just different challenges that.
And it definitely seems like they're going to be doing more of those than they even did in the original. And there's going to be some reimaginings of those original characters, but then and same thing on the He-Man side, like Man at Arms or Teela. Like you can tell those people were in the original movie, but they're also going to now be in this movie. I'm very excited. I'm with you. I'm excited to see what they do with this remake. I think. One thing to me, just like you said from the trailer, I believe that they're embracing the technology, maybe even making it almost like a live action cartoon, to use that kind of terminology, because I think a lot of CGI does that to movies. It kind of like gives it that over animated feeling, but maybe like source material like He-Man could really benefit from that.
Yeah, and I kind of think I'm just over like Hollywood's just trying to make everything so grounded and everything so real, and you kind of feel like there's been a little bit of a paradigm shift here recently, and you can kind of see it with like the Street Fighter trailer too, as well, and even Mortal Kombat. Like it feels like the source material and not this like we have to make this feel real so that audiences believe it. Like no, we don't want to believe it. It's a trip to the movies. Let's have fun.
To be gritty. It doesn't have to feel real and all of that. Yeah, no, I can agree with that. So but a lot of variables here. A lot of variables, and now's the time to find out how these variables play out. So. As I said, Ray and I are going to venture to the movie theater now, and you could be doing the same thing, just like the old days. I'm sure we'll be talking about that a little bit, but yes, just like the old days, we are going to be traveling to the movie theater to watch the new 2026 Masters of the Universe, as well as the original 1987 Masters of the Universe, and we invite every one of you to do the exact same thing, so we can find out how these movies stack up. We're very excited to do it. I hope you are as well. But join us, come back, hit play, and find out how we think these movies turned out.
Ray and Rob are currently watching the film. Wait, films? There are two? How long is this supposed to take? I've got places to be, Ray and Rob will be right back when they're done watching the films.
All right, everybody. Rob and I are back. We are back from Eternia.
We are, and you know what? I actually feel like we got to go to Eternia in the 2026 version. Where I mean. In 1987, I feel like you're there for a hot second.
Yeah, and that was one of the things growing up that I always just disliked. I so disliked bringing He-Man to Earth. I wanted him to be in Eternia, and this movie does the opposite. He doesn't start off in Earth because they spent a good chunk of time of it with his childhood, but then they bring him Earth. It's just a tease. He's going back to Eternia, and you spend the rest of the movie there.
Yeah. I think it's funny. Watching both movies kind of made me realize something, and I feel like both movies do this, where both movies really rely heavily on movies that came before them. So like in 1987, I feel like they did a lot of Star Wars stuff. There's like a lot of Star Wars, whether it's the way that certain scenes play out or way some of the production design is. I feel like that movie exists because Star Wars existed, and I feel like this could feel like a low blow, and I don't necessarily mean it. I don't necessarily mean it as a derogatory way, but with 2026, I feel like it doesn't exist without Thor Ragnarok. Wow. And it's like, and that could be why this movie is made. And I don't know if I can't come up with a fun, quippy like type of remake, whatever that is, like but I feel like it's even disconnected. Like it's a remake that's disconnected from the original.
Yeah.
But it's connected to another movie from another universe.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah, and I don't think that's an insult because I think Thor Ragnarok is awesome.
I love Thor
Ragnarok. It's a great thing to be inspired by.
One of the best MCU movies there is.
Yeah, I will say though, I guess we can talk about this because I did hear though from Mattel's point of view, they did have like a more serious, grounded, Zack Snyder-y version of He-Man that they were like getting close to making. There's been so many attempts at trying to make a He-Man movie, but that one was getting close. And then the Barbie movie, which really embraced silliness, kind of gave them, I think, maybe you could say it gave them the bravery to let He-Man, this new one, be more God,
more campy,
Thor Ragnarok, and embrace the camp.
I definitely can see that. I will say, watching the movie, I don't feel Barbie. I feel Thor Ragnarok.
No.
But you're right. I feel like you can kind of merge those two ideas into one, and that's what becomes this version of Masters of the Universe.
Because I think it's different. I think the studio greenlit this movie being silly because of Barbie, but I think the directors and the writers who make the movie were inspired by Thor Ragnarok.
Yeah.
So I think both are true.
Yeah.
Or potentially true. We don't really know how much of Thor Ragnarok was the inspiration, but it's clearly quite a bit. I know Flash Gordon has been credited a lot too.
I can see that.
At least musically.
Well, definitely musically. Brian May doing the music for the new one, as obviously doing the music. Queen doing the music for Flash Gordon. It makes all the sense in the world.
But so this is copy of a copy, and so we are going to compare these movies a hair. Again, we don't compare to say which is better, but to me, I clearly know which one I like better because we're on the record saying I don't like the 87
exactly.
version.
And again, I'm very curious to have this conversation with you because I am curious to see if this rewatch did change your mind even a little bit about the original 1987 Masters of the Universe. Because I will come out out of the gate right now, and I will admit I still had a lot of fun with it.
Bold. And 87.
87, exactly. I still feel like the moments that I enjoyed as a kid still hits, and all of that. But I don't want your answer yet because I want to talk through it. But I will say, for me, I'll go ahead and put that out there that I still really enjoy 87. So my focus is really going to be on the 2026 one as well. But
okay. Now, one thing I'll say, let's just start right off the bat and just start diving into it. When you look back at the 87 version, that movie is called Masters of the Universe.
Right.
And it is not titled He-Man.
Right.
And I agree with that title choice because that movie is not about He-Man.
That's fair.
He's just there.
Yeah.
Like, he does some things, but he literally is just there.
Yeah.
Where this movie, the new one, 2026, is He-Man Masters of the Universe. And this movie does embrace He-Man. And I think that's for the better with this new version.
And I don't disagree with that at all. But I think the biggest reason for that is that the new one is essentially an origin story.
Yes, it is.
Whereas in 1987, He-Man was already an established hero. Yeah. Like, he was already He-Man. He had been He-Man. He was well known within Eternia. Like, he was already fighting the good fight and all of that. So I think that is another reason why maybe it feels like the movie didn't revolve around him, and it was more about the people around him seeing him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you're kind of talking about like the Kevin and the Julie characters and stuff like that. Maybe having their plight drive certain parts of the narrative, whereas He-Man is more just coming in to save the moment or whatever. But I will also admit, just from a narrative standpoint, that I'm not really sure outside of this final battle, like, we got to stop Skeletor, what the original one is really about. You know what I mean? Like, it's not really there's no moral to the story necessary. Right. Yeah. Like, it really is just a very simple action story, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it is quite different from what they were trying to do in the 2026 version.
Yeah. The 1986 version is get the MacGuffin.
Right.
We got to get the MacGuffin, and we want the MacGuffin more. We'll go get the MacGuffin.
Yeah.
Where there is a theme in the new one, and I think we'll talk maybe in a second about how effective those themes are.
Sure.
But there are themes that they're striving for.
Yeah.
But if you still kind of focus on 1986, the movie not being about
7.
Sorry, 97.
I know it's like 26 and 87.
Yeah.
6, 7.
Oh no, we just walked
Where's
right
Mr.
into
Kitty
that
Kaiju?
one.
Is he around here?
But the movie not centering around He-Man isn't necessarily a bad idea, because I think if you look at He-Man being Dolph Lundgren, who, like, I think it's his second movie ever.
Yeah.
And he's not the greatest actor in the world.
Sure.
And you have Frank Langella as Skeletor, and you want to be like, you know what? I think we should make this a Skeletor movie and really kind of try to focus on him as much as we can. It's probably smart by the director to try to do that at that time. You got to work with what you got, because Dolph Lundgren looks like He-Man. You didn't have special effects to make him look very like he looks like He-Man. Thank you, steroids. But he doesn't really can't really act and pull off those scenes like probably you would want.
That's not untrue, but I will also say that I don't necessarily feel like they gave him the chance. It's not that they wrote a character that had anything to say. You know what I mean? Outside of being just an action.
Well, what we see on screen. I think they might have known what they were. You know, I'm imagining that they kind of put him into they let him be successful. Like they didn't ask him to put on some long, diatribe or put a monologue that takes up the whole screen because the whole script page because they're like, this wouldn't happen, so it's not going to work. So let's just. We're not going to have any of these in the story.
Yeah, I mean, and that could absolutely be true. I'm not sure what drove what first. Yeah. You know what I mean, as far as that goes.
Chicken or the egg, I guess.
Right. I did watch an interesting interview with the director, and he flat out said that they really built this movie around Skeletor.
Yeah.
And that was why they got Frank Langella. Once they brought him in, like he had such control and a mastery over the character that there was no way they could not center this movie kind of on Skeletor being the anchor. So I definitely don't disagree with anything you're saying as far as like what they did. Maybe this is me just knee-jerk defending Dolph a little bit because it's like it's not like they attempted to give him something, but maybe they did and I just don't know that. So that's fair.
It isn't really an insult necessarily. It's just it's your second movie ever. You were really cast because of your look first because you've nailed it, and it is to get the look that they really want. There's only a handful, probably people in the world that could do it, and he was one of those handfuls.
Yeah.
So that that's a credit in and of itself, or there's something there. But I think if you compare him to the guy I'm not really familiar with in this new one, Nicholas Galitzine.
I don't know how to say this. Basinger Galitzine. Yeah.
Sure.
Galitzine.
I thought he was really good. I thought he was fun. Not really. He's not going to win an Academy Award here.
No.
I think the one thing with go back to Thor Ragnarok, which I definitely feel like they probably try to let these guys improvise a little bit and kind of run with some scenes, a hair here, find some jokes. And I don't think Nick was as good as like Chris Hemsworth necessarily.
No, definitely not.
and it's really hard to be like, be good at improv and make this scene funny for us.
Yeah.
So I think you're gonna have things that don't always land. I thought there was a lot of attempt at real good humor. There was some really good humor in this, which I like. Which really not in the '86 version doesn't really go for too much, jokes per se. It's more like not straightforward, but action oriented. Yeah. Where this one is definitely bringing in the comedy. But you throw in a lot of jokes, they're not gonna land for everybody. But I know some of the jokes I wasn't laughing at, the people next to me were. So I'm like, okay, well, and vice versa. So.
That's fair. I think having this be an origin story and having a difference between Adam and He-Man made a big difference.
Definitely, because there is no Adam
in
1987.
There is no Adam in 1987, exactly. He is He-Man the entire time. He's He-Man the moment he is on screen. He's He-Man the last moment he's on screen. It never differentiates the entire movie. So I think that allowed the actor Nicholas Galitzine to kind of find something to say with the character and find those comedic moments, because I do feel like it let the goofiness come in, because that's the whole thing, is he has to be a human on Earth, and he's kind of a fish out of water.
Right.
It kind of puts that fish out of water story into effect, and I think that worked pretty well. And not that there was, and it was funny because he got to be fish out of water in both places.
Right.
Which was fun, because he got to be a fish out of water on Earth, and he got to be a fish out of water on Eternia.
When he goes back home.
Exactly. So I think that kind of helped him find those comedic moments. But, like I said, it's unfortunate because I do feel like, and not that you're right, Dolph Lundgren's not the greatest actor, but I do wish that they kind of allowed him to maybe have a little bit more freedom, like they did with Nicholas Galitzine, to kind of maybe find the character a little bit more than what he did.
I do definitely, I wish that the movie did give you a little bit more He-Man. Or I wish the movie gave you a lot bit more He-Man and something that he was actually trying to accomplish, other than
in the new one.
Getting the device in the old one.
In the old one.
I want a whole lot more He-Man in that one. So again, maybe if you challenge Dolph Lundgren, maybe the movie's worse. I think it probably would be better. I think he would find something there that you could attach onto. And so, but in the new movie, they do give them something to attach onto. And so maybe we could talk about the theme a little bit before. And I think this will kind of lead us into maybe a fun little Skeletor discussion. Played, the new one played by he who should not be named, but
the most insufferable man on the planet.
At least in the advertising, he is not named. Jared Leto is not named in the advertising. But so this movie, as we kind of stated, the 2026 He-Man movie, is trying to push a theme, which with the original does not.
No,
there's no
theme.
metaphors there.
There's no theme to the original.
And this one is pushing a theme, which I like and I appreciate, and I think was smart, but I'm not 100% sure they land it.
I can agree with that.
They're pushing that theme of like, what is a man, or a man?
Right.
A man is this.
Like masculinity, a man. What does a man do? Like,
and it's also
in what moments?
Yeah, and it's also kind of muddled with like, how do you handle power, or what do you do with power?
Sure.
And I find that a little muddy to kind of be combining them, because it's like, well, having power isn't male exclusive,
right?
And so I think that kind of muddies it up, because Teela is very powerful, definitely, kind of in both movies, but I think again shines brighter in this one because the good guys just have more to do.
Yeah.
But to me, the whole like theme of the movie kind of centers around in that final battle with like Skeletor and He-Man. And I think Skeletor's like, you have all this power and you don't even know how to use it, and then He-Man just like beats the crap out of him and is like, I know how to use it. We watched this movie live in the theaters. I'm not good at quoting now. I couldn't write them down, but He-Man's like, I know how to use it. I just choose not.
I prefer not.
I prefer not.
Yeah, I prefer not.
And I think that's the theme. I think that's what they're going for. Like, having power doesn't mean you have to flex your muscle all the time, show off, intimidate. Having power means be restraint with it.
Yeah.
And then use it when you have to.
Yeah. I completely agree. I think you're right that was the clear, kind of, even like, well, what was that, Orko? Like they had a little post scene where like, he comes in, he kind of like gives you the themes of the movie or whatever. That's kind of more or less what he was kind of talking about. But
so much in the movie they're saying like it's not about having. They don't frame it as in, how do you handle power? They're like, well, what is it to be a man? Like, are we allowed to show our emotions? Is that manly? Like, there's so much talking about being a man that I think that's where it feels like that line that I just said to me really works, but it felt muddied in how they kind of got there.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. And especially when you're looking at Adam on Earth, the world that he kind of lives in. It feels like you can't necessarily put your finger on whether trying to kind of parodying these aspects of like modern life where certain things are talked about in certain ways, or certain things are acknowledged that that didn't used to be, or whatever, even having his pronouns on his nameplate, which is also like a He-Man joke in a way. It's a He-Man joke, but it's still it's part of it as well. And I do feel like it's not necessarily like pushing the idea of, because I feel like if you could watch that first act, kind of see how he's going on Earth and how these things are playing out around him, and then once he gets to Eternia, and then he starts doing having these, I guess, questions about, like you said, his strength and his masculinity and how he handles certain situations and not being a pushover and all of that, and even things like what Man at Arms says, and talking about protecting people. I feel like there is a shift where it's not necessarily a toxic masculinity thing, where it's like, oh, you need to be this alpha male bro dog, and you need to beat the hell out of everybody because that's how you're a man. I think they're trying to find a middle ground there. But I agree with you that I think they rely really heavily on that last line where it's like, I prefer not to. Right. And it's almost like Mr. Miyagi. And I think that the landing, because this might sound weird, like the landing works, right? But the steps to get to the landing don't necessarily work. You know what I mean? Like, I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Like, I agree. That's
what I'm saying. I agree.
Right, yeah,
I
agree. Like I agree with you 100%. It's like you give him that nod moment at the end when he says the miracle nod moment where he says that line at the end, but you're also like, but did everything add up to this? I'm not necessarily sure.
Exactly. I totally feel the same way. And maybe I'm trying to think back to the movie, because again, this is new for us on Copy of a Copy, where we haven't seen these movies before. We watched it live in the theater just now, and I can't really take good notes live in the theater. But maybe when his dad died in this new version, and his dad was kind of like, he was kind of like, sorry, I know you wanted me to be a different person, and his dad's like, no, I didn't. It was like, I was kind of getting like that Inception vibe, like, I'm disappointed you tried to be me, or But I was like, I'm also, so maybe then his like perspective changed on manliness to how to handle power. I'm not sure. Maybe upon a rewatch that might become more clear in the themes. But I will also say this about his dad: like, no, you're a liar, bro. You literally thought I was a little bitch. So.
Right? Yeah. No, I can agree with that, and that part does come a little muddled. But he also like apologizes, and his little monologue was a little muddled in that regard. Because like, oh, I want you to be who you are, but I wanted to protect you. I wanted you to be strong. I'm sorry for pushing you and like treating you as badly as I did, but I just wanted you to be yourself. Like, well, no, you didn't at the time. Maybe you do now.
Because I wasn't strong. So,
right.
And so that means you wanted me to be different.
Right. You wanted me to be different then, but now it's, so maybe that could have been a little different. But I agree. But again, it's one of those things where like I agree with the final message, but I'm also like, did you really sell the message leading up to it? I don't know.
Yeah. And again, we appreciate them trying. Like,
and that's kind of something to say. Like it's a movie with something to say.
It's a new thing where sometimes these movies were made without really having anything to talk about.
Yeah.
I guess that's the point we're making. The '86 version didn't really attempt to, where this one like, no, we're gonna say something.
Yeah. Another element of this movie that I thought felt a little weird, and in this vein of theme and power, and again, I'm gonna have to reference Thor Ragnarok because it's impossible not to, is He-Man had a total Thor God of Hammers moment in this movie where it's like, oh, I'm nothing without the sword.
Right.
And it's like, so it's an interesting journey, and I'm still kind of wrapping my head around it to feel like if it actually works or not in the totality. Where so he starts out the movie in Eternia, and he feels like he's a kind of a nobody, a nothing, because he is so small. He's not able to kind of keep up with everybody else. And then he goes to Earth, and that kind of continues. Right. He's lost the sword and all of that, and he's on Earth kind of living a normal human life, and he feels ineffectual in certain ways. Yeah. You know what I mean? So he's searching for this sword. This is going to not just take me home, but make me who I'm supposed to be. So I need this sword. And he finally gets the sword, and then he goes back to Eternia, and then he eventually becomes He-Man and becomes everything that he wants to be. He thinks his dad, expecting to be who he thinks his dad wants him to be, all of this stuff. And then he kind of gets to his Thor God of Hammers moment when it's like, oh, the sword's broken, and now I have to decide who I am. And he even says, like, what are the words you say when you have the sword? By the power of Grayskull, I have the power. See, you have the power. Right. It's not the sword. So, like, it's almost, at least as far as the theme goes, kind of beat for beat Thor for Ragnarok in that way, except for the fact that he starts out as nothing and becomes something.
Right. Yeah.
And then loses that. So, like, I guess for me, I'm trying to, like, wrap my mind around if that kind of truncated narrative of Thor Ragnarok, because that's a third movie, 2 Avengers movies. Like, the hammer is so integrated into who Thor is. By that point, he'd kind of earned his Thor God of Hammers moment.
Yeah.
I don't know if He-Man had earned that quite yet in this movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, he had it for like 10 minutes.
Right.
You know what I mean? And now he doesn't have it anymore. It's like, no, this whole thing is entirely of who I am. And it's like, why do you think that? Like, you've had it for 10 minutes.
Exactly. Well, but I guess if you think about it too, like, he's had the power his whole life.
Sure.
And it's really, you can think about it, I guess, as like, it's that confidence. Like, you can be a really strong person, but if everybody tells you suck your whole life, you're going to think you suck your whole life. And so that's true with him. Like, other than like the magical abilities of like his muscles do grow, but I think that's him. It's not him touching the sword like he thinks.
Yeah.
It's like him believing it's possible now.
Yeah.
And again, he's so tied up into this, like, basically verbal abuse his dad built on him, and War of Arms.
Right.
When he was a kid, that like without the sword, he just he doesn't have that confidence in himself. So that ability just goes away.
Yeah, I agree.
You know what I mean? So I think that's kind of what you could try to say it's going for, but again,
I'm not
it's like
saying it doesn't work.
Yeah. It's a lot of changing really fast in one movie.
Right, exactly. Like, where I feel like I said, Thor had multiple movies that kind of build up to this moment of who am I without this hammer. In this movie, it's like I said, it's probably 40 minutes of screen time, maybe 45 with the sword, and then he loses it and has to, like, for the finale sequence to figure it out. So, like, like I said, I'm not saying it doesn't work. I'm just trying to wrap my head around it still.
Speaking of growing muscles, I will say I feel like the attempt in this movie...
Oh my God, we got to talk about that.
Well, for me, the attempt... I hope we're going in the same direction. But
I'm pretty sure we are.
The attempt in this movie to make Nicholas Gallatin not look really buff is horribly...
Put a baggy shirt on him. It'll be fine.
Is horrible.
I knew it.
Or like putting a sweatshirt on makes him look buffer and bigger. It's like... I'm like, no, what are we doing? Like, I know, like, you're using plenty of CGI in this movie. They need to save some, nickels here and there. But it's like, you did not successfully not make him look like a giant.
The funniest part about that is when he has his initial transformation into He-Man scene and like his shirt blows off.
Yeah.
They CGI him to be smaller.
Right.
And then make him his actual size.
The Steve Rogers moment.
Right, exacay. They do that. And I'm just like, that's like not what was underneath that shirt. I don't know who you're fooling.
They had to do like the reverse where they like had to make the CGI model of him small to get back to where he is naturally, which I guess is what they did in Captain America. But but at least in Captain America, like they made Steve Rogers look little.
Yeah.
They did not. They weren't able to do that here, which is fine. Like again, like I said, they're saving nickels wherever they can. But speaking of the theme again, let's go back to this manliness because I think this can maybe lead us into talking about Skeletor.
Okay.
Because great foils for each other. Because Skeletor is a guy in this new one who has all this power, and he is the one who abuses it. He's just a bully.
Yeah.
And he's not. And He-Man tries to give him a chance to be a good guy.
Yeah.
Like he's like, I won't kick your ass right now if you allow it. And Skeletor basically says, no, you have to kick my butt. But he's a guy who has power. He abuses power, which is what most people with power do.
Right.
So I kind of like the idea that He-Man, where he was going with I'm not going to fight you first.
Right.
What did you think about like just that kind of Skeletor? The Skeletor refusing to not be bad, and just I guess we can lead into Jared Leto's version.
Yeah. So wait, are you talking about
just like any one of those three topics? Start there, but maybe we tackle all three.
So, well, in the 2026 version, I very much appreciate the idea that they didn't have he made that kind of attempt to be like, oh well, we can talk or whatever. Because again, it kind of harkens back to the joke where he like tries to cross the bridge and talk to Trapjaw or whatever, and like oh, we can talk about this in my world. We use our words, and that kind of thing. But then Skeletor just laughs it off. Says, "I'm a villain. I like to be a villain, and it feels good." I like that element of it because I feel like there are times where we, as a culture in general, maybe movie watching culture, just all around, have this idea where we have to be so introspective about everything, including the villain. Like the villain needs to have more depth than just being a villain. And I appreciate that in this movie, Skeletor could just be the villain.
Yeah.
There didn't need to be a reason why. There didn't need to be some, like he kind of said, like there's no, goodness that you're going to uncore in me or something like that.
Some people just like to watch the world burn.
Right, exactly. And I think that I do appreciate that. Because I do think there's definitely a time and place for that, but I don't think Skeletor is it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Right. Skeletor is a villain. He's going to be a villain. That's why you want him to be there, and that's that. I feel like something like
thanks for trying, He-Man, but not going to work.
Right. And if you reference something, going back to our Thor Ragnarok kind of conversations, Loki is a different monster.
Sure.
Like Loki is a villain that they've done so much work on. They made him kind of this anti-hero, anti-villain kind of situation, and I think that worked amazing.
Right.
That's not going to work with Skeletor.
No.
You know what I mean?
And
it shouldn't.
We don't want them to be friends.
Right, exactly. So I think in that regard it works great. Now, I like what they did, obviously, in '87, where he is very menacing. Like, I think I sat down, and full disclosure, I sat down fully expecting Frank Langella to be the better Skeletor.
Right.
Like, I just expected that out of the gate, because I do remember that from my love of it as a child, and it still rings true. His performance, as we said earlier, carries the original movie.
Yeah.
And he is so damn good as Skeletor. Like, he delivers his lines so well, so many great lines. He has a presence that is just off the charts, and it's all practical.
Right.
Which I think is that says
Except
a lot.
for the lightning bolts coming from his fingers.
Right, exactly. Very Palpatine of him.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? But yeah, I think, he does so much with that character. He throws everything he has at it, which is so admirable.
Which you have to under that much makeup or mask or whatever the prosthetic was.
Absolutely. And then on the flip of that, you have now Jared Leto as, Skeletor in the new one, and where it's his face is completely CGI.
Yeah.
Like, he does nothing, like, in that regard. It's all his voice, which
I think the whole body is CGI, but it is Jared Leto doing it.
Right, yeah. and he does what he can, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
with it just as well. Like, you know, as much
I
as
liked.
you
I
want.
will say I liked him.
That's where I'm going with it. Is I ended up thinking that they were both great in their own way. I think, you know, I think Leto did a really good job of hearkening back to the old cartoon.
He felt more cartoony.
Yeah, and I think so. In that moment, he did what he needed to do and delivered a Skeletor that was, you know, memorable and worthwhile in this particular movie. But I still love Langella's, and I still, you know, maybe if it was brass tacks, like say, you know, it's hard to not give it to Langella. But
I think I agree with that, and I'm not a fan of the '87 version,
right?
You know, originally, but I think I would give the nod to Langella still.
Yeah.
But I don't like giving Jared Leto too much credit.
For sure.
But I did think I liked.
He's gonna be insufferable about it. Don't give him credit.
Well, I think if they get to make a sequel to this new one, and I hope they do, I think they would totally replace Jared Leto. But I think somebody could mimic what he did. But I will say too with Langella too, like it's his role. It felt so theatrical in a great way.
Yeah.
And some of his lines, I just got to say this. You know,
chewed the scenery up in that movie, and it was great.
And when he gives him that line to He-Man, like, "Tell me about the loneliness of good. Is it equal to the loneliness of evil?" I'm like, "Ooh, I love this line."
Yeah.
And it would have been a great thing to explore more in that movie.
Yeah.
But yeah. So Jared Leto tried to hold his own. His version was going to be hard to surpass from the 1987 version, and he gets close, but I don't think he surpasses.
No.
I wanted to ask you a little bit about the structure, because here's the thing, you know, as I said, like, originally was never a fan of the 1987 version, and my main thing when I was a kid that I didn't like about it, it just doesn't feel like He-Man. One, because they're in New York, and two, because like
California.
You're right. I was thinking New York in my brain, but yeah, they're Earth. I should just say Earth. Is all I meant to say was Earth. But two is like they don't really use any of the cool villains or the toys that I had, except for Beastman.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they create three mercs who are original characters, and I'm like, why use the guys we got? We have so many awesome ones that I'm staring at on my shelf that you know, I'm sure it was financial decisions, but like to me as a kid that was super disappointing. And like, you know, looking at these other guys. Now it's funny they bring one of those characters, Karg or whatever, into this new one.
Yeah.
But the structure of this new movie is we are embracing all of this camp. So like the good guys, He-Man side had toy characters. Mm-hmm. The Skeletor's crew, his mercenaries were all toy characters, and I really thought that helped make the new one fun, and I appreciated it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think it was definitely a budget choice. I'll say that right out of the gate. Like I guarantee you, the vast majority of it was budgetary, because you got to think like, oh, you know, you got like the Trapjaw character, which is obviously a big part of the 2026 version, kind of like Man at Arms is, you know, arch nemesis and throughout this movie, and he's the gauntlet he has to beat is Trapjaw, and they could have done that in '87, sure. But I think, you know, like when you're talking about things like his arms and stuff like that, like the changing of like how his arm kind of changes and stuff like that, like they would have had a hard time doing. They would never have been able to do that. So I feel like they kind of just decided, well, let's make these characters a little more simplified and, you know, be able to do that. You know, Mechaneck. Like you're never going to be able to do Mechaneck in 1987. Like what the hell would that even look like?
It wouldn't work.
Right, unless you're getting, you know, Harryhausen to come in and do it. Like, you know, you're not doing any of that. So like I get that and I understand that. And, you know, they could have done
Fisto.
They could have, and that is true. They could have done Fisto.
They could have done more fisting, for sure.
Because that guy fists a lot of guys.
But really, it would be the villains, because I mean, the good guy team does have Teela, does have Man at Arms. It's He-Man, and it's a small group, but it is mostly lore characters.
Yeah,
it was really, I guess, where you'd fall on Skeletor's side, where they were bringing in original characters of their own. I'm like, I don't appreciate this.
Mm-hmm. I agree, but I think we kind of I think we talked about it a little bit in the before section. I just think, you know, that's another reason why this movie was made. Outside of what I said earlier about like the Ragnarok situation, the technology that we have now allowed for so much more of this movie to sing. Like, you know, being in Eternia is so much more. Granted, I will say, like, you know, this is unfair as I just said, but like I felt a lot of Thor in the production design of the cities,
bright,
and of the right, exactly, from the color palette and stuff like that.
But I think that's also because He-Man, like Thor is like, we're making a 1980s superhero movie Right. And He-Man is a 1980s
so that
character.
Is a very, very valid point. And that is a very valid point. Is like maybe He-Man had more business being like this than maybe what Thor Ragnarok did. So like, you know what? That's actually a really good argument. Yeah. I had not put that together till right this second. So I think that makes a lot of sense. But I am glad, no matter what, either way, that they went this way, that they were able to bring some of those characters in that they did not do in 1987.
Yeah. And again, they were like some of those characters that they were the toys that you held in your hand. You got to just, I feel like, really appreciate and like more. Like, you know, obviously I think Teela and Man-at-Arms, they just have way more screen time in this movie. Yeah. So there's more to do. And they do try to do more stuff with them. Now, I will say one thing about Man-at-Arms that totally took me out of the movie. Like, you know, he's in jail. He's sleeping in his own piss, puking. I'm like, he's obviously like really super drunk and hungover. I'm like, how do you get super drunk and hungover in jail? Like, are the guards like just giving going on a romp?
To be fair, he probably got drunk outside of jail.
Oh, maybe he was just jailed.
They threw him in jail.
Yeah, I guess I was under the impression that he's been in there for a while.
No, I doubt that he's like. I don't think he's like a prisoner.
I was like, wow, this is the coolest jail ever. Like free drinks. Let's go.
Yeah, but since you brought it up, let's talk a little bit about the I guess battling Man-at-Arms, Man-at-Arms, because I mean it's no contest and it's maybe unfair, but Idris Elba is obviously the better Man-at-Arms here. But you're right, and I kind of maybe the same argument I made for Dolph is they just gave him more to do and more of a an arc to go for. So I think that is something that again with all the side characters in the original movie they just didn't have. So, I appreciate that they did that in this movie, but also getting, like I said, Idris Elba to be Man-at-Arms was genius because he's just so good.
He was great, and I think
also from Thor, just to throw that out there. Just gonna say
and that. Teela played by Camilla.
In the room.
Teela was great too, I thought, played by Camilla Mendez, and I like this idea. This is exactly what they do in all the shows and in the original stuff. Is like He-Man and Teela have something, but they never really get there. Sure. You know what I mean? They don't really ever, and obviously, original He-Man. There's a lot of like LGBTQ type stuff about He-Man.
So it's fortuitous we're doing this during Pride Month because I was going to bring up they do kind of I think hint at the homoeroticism of He-Man a little bit at various times in this movie.
Sure, I mean, and they they stay true. They don't like shy away from that. He wears pink, which is a little stereotypical or whatever.
Right.
But they do show him go on dates with a woman, but he also has a roommate that's pretty friendly with. I don't know.
Right.
You know what I mean? I think they tried to leave the door open. So, but anyway, I thought Teela was great. Again, she just has stuff to do, stuff to prove. I will say, a little bit disappointed with this new version, the Teela Evelyn fight at the end. Like they start battling in the corner, and then they just seem to stop. Like nobody wins. There's no real moment there.
Sure,
seemed to kind of like a waste for one character or the other.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm still a little on the fence about Alison Brie as Evelyn. Like I love Alison Brie. I love Alison Brie. There's full disclosure, I love Alison Brie. And like so, when I saw she was in this movie, I'm like, oh, that's gonna be really fun.
Great choice.
And especially with the tone that they ultimately went for, like she has such great comedic timing, and she can even do the dramatic stuff as well. Like I think she has a lot of versatility. But it felt like to me like because even with the tone, they didn't necessarily maybe let her off the chain enough for me. So like I'm still kind of, like I said, kind of wrapping my head around it and seeing where I ultimately land. Like I do like that she's in the movie.
Right.
I would be interested to see where she might go going forward in the sequel, like we kind of talked about earlier. But like I still really do love the 87 Evelyn. Like I think she plays that evil character so well.
Yeah, and I think the older version Evelyn might even be better to me as well than Alison Brie because it feels like Alison Brie's Evelyn is a girl who's like she's playing this long game,
right?
Or like it seemed like she was either going to turn on Skeletor, which she doesn't, or she's playing this long game, but like the long game doesn't transpire in this movie.
Yeah.
So it just feels like she gets pushed around and doesn't really do anything.
Yeah, well, and it's a very common theme right now. You see it in a lot of movies. You talked about it recently in Send Help, where it's like this, this woman working in a man's world, and the man is, kind of incompetent, kind of an asshole, kind of, an egomaniac, kind of holding you down, and you've got a lot of power. I mean, she's a sorceress. Like, let's be honest. And
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And it's so, and she has to kind of put up with his crap. And you get those from different moments. You know what I mean? Which I did appreciate, you know, when he got a little whiny about, like, why didn't anybody, you know, clap? This was the crescendo. You know what I mean? So, like, those moments were funny. And I do think, you know, she is able to kind of, like, swoop in a little bit and add her flavor to it. But I like I said, if they make a sequel, I hope they let her off the chain a little bit more and let Alison Brie as Evelyn kind of, you know, capture the scene a little more. You know what I mean? Let her steal the scene a little bit more, steal a little bit more of it. So I like this as an origin for her, but I definitely would like to see more of her.
Yeah, I think if she like goes and say, I don't think Skeletor's done for, you know, even though he kind of is dead at the end, but I feel like he's somewhere.
Yeah.
And she probably has the magical powers to go save him.
Yeah.
And I'd be interested if she does. And now she, you know, that puts them more on a level playing field. She's like, I saved your butt. You owe, like, no more pushing me around. And they're more of a team.
Yeah.
And then you could let, you know, Evelyn shine more.
Yeah. Well, since we're on the kind of, I guess, topic of side characters, and I mentioned them earlier, you know, the original 87 version is really kind of driven by Julie and Kevin.
Yeah.
You know, having this kind of earthbound story, you know, where, you know, I guess they're
the fish out of water.
They're the fish out of water. A little bit.
They're on Earth, but they're unfamiliar with anything that's going on around them.
Right, exactly. And it's not like they necessarily have like a super strong narrative. Like she's leaving, and Kevin is like her, I guess, quote unquote boyfriend, but they're kind of like breaking up so she can leave because her parents just recently died, flying to the Catalina wine mixer,
basically.
And
frickin' Catalina wine mixer.
Catalina wine mixer. But yeah, so like it's not like a super strong narrative per se, but it does drive like the human element and does feel like it is, you know, as far as like the locations where all of this stuff is happening, like they're the ones with the MacGuffin, like they're the ones who find the key and they're the ones moving it around, so it's like they're chasing them.
They're the one that fix it, kind of.
Right, exactly. But you know, so how do you feel about them as characters? I know, you know, obviously coming in not liking this movie, and part of the reason why is because they kind of drive the narrative. On a reviewing, like, what do you think about them?
Well, it's complicated, Rob. It's complicated because I'll say, like, upon watching the movie this time, I guess I like the little arc that they have with each other. Because if anybody has an arc in this movie, it's kind of their relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, I guess Courtney Cox, like, not feeling like she has to run away because of her.
Right.
Which is, I also think the kind of folds in on itself with the ending where her parents come back to life.
Yeah, no, we'll get there because I have some thoughts about that too.
But so I will say, like, I kind of appreciate Kevin and It's not Kevin and Courtney because Courtney is a real name.
Courtney Cox is who played Julie. Kevin and Julie.
Julie, yeah.
I'm sorry, Kevin and Julie.
Yeah, so I do appreciate Kevin and Julie more watching it this time, and I actually like Kevin way more than I ever remember liking him before. Yeah. But at the same time, I'm frustrated because I don't want to be liking the human characters in this movie. Like they should not be the ones that I'm more interested in, and they're not the ones I want to see on the screen more. And they definitely get more screen time, or at least equal to He-Man.
Right.
And a lot of scenes they're in, He-Man's not in, which is frustrating.
Yeah, no,
especially with Kevin.
That's fair, and again, it's because they're the MacGuffin, or they have the MacGuffin, I should say, and he is a song maker, which they ultimately end up, discovering.
The galaxy is
Goldor ends up discovering, who is not in anything else.
No, I think he's like the sub for Orko, I guess.
He's the sub for Orko, but I enjoy Billy Barty as Goldor. Yeah. I think he's perfectly fine. I think he does what he's supposed to do, and he kind of lightens up different scenes, which again is, I think if there is a comedic effect or comedy or comic relief, I should say, in the 87 version, it's Billy Barty.
Yeah.
But the
cop character's too much though. The cop character's too much.
Yeah,
there's too many fish out of water.
Yeah, and James Tolkien, who just recently passed away, and
he's great.
He's great.
He's always fun.
I mean, Strickland. They even give him a shotgun too.
I know.
I was like,
very Back
Strickland!
To the Future. Very Back to the Future.
Slackers! I was waiting for him to start yelling slackers at everybody as he was pumping off that shotgun.
He doesn't act. He's him.
Right.
Every movie he's in.
I've heard he was a sweetheart in real life. I heard he was an absolute sweetheart in real life.
Bald guys usually are.
You know all about that. But yeah, no,
but too many fish out of water. Like that is. I'm like, they give all of your lines to Man at Arms or something. Like, develop those characters.
Well, and I do understand having kind of this like opponent character on Earth that is kind of, you know, standing in Julie and Kevin's way of like doing these things. You know, I do understand that, you know, and like coming in thinking, oh, well, I don't know what's going on either, but I'm the tough guy on this planet. So like I do understand having that, but then bringing him into that final battle sequence probably felt like a little bit over the top, and then having him just stay in Eternia and like, I've got a brand new life now, I got a hot lady here, I'm just like
how long's it been, how'd you guys meet?
Like it's very strange. So I agree with that. Like I love James Tolkien, but yeah, I do think that maybe
too many side
characters, maybe little edit in that process.
Yeah.
But also, you know, we kind of mentioned it earlier with maybe a certain convolution, if you will.
Yeah.
Is that a word, convolution?
Yeah. It's too convoluted.
It's convoluted.
Around the ending.
Right, exactly, around the ending. Because when you talk about Julie and her parents and all of that, like, the one thing that bothered me, maybe the most out of all of this rewatch, in all honesty, of the 1987 version, was how the quote-unquote science doesn't make sense here. Because it's like, he says like, oh, I can send you anywhere in history or whatever. So, you know what, I'll actually say, like, her going back before her parents died doesn't bother me. What bothered me was the idea of her waking up in her bed like it was a dream.
Yeah,
I'm like, no portal had done that up to this point. You know what I mean?
Just walk out of it and you're there.
So it's like she should have walked out somewhere, whether it was outside of her house or, you know, at the cemetery where the key, whatever, you know, wherever they chose. Like, she should just walk out of the portal, not wake up like it was a dream, because it almost like tells the audience like, oh, was this just a dream?
Did this happen?
Oh, and then she like runs outside after.
And I
she
hate that in movies so bad.
Right, and it's like, and then like Kevin's like, oh no, it was real. I've got the jewel, and you like look in and you see He-Man, and like, right, and I'm just like, that was totally unnecessary.
Yeah.
Like I actually don't necessarily mind her saving her parents, because Gwildor
well, it's almost like it was a gift from Gwildor to her, because she didn't ask for it.
Right. Which is fine. Like I said, like, she was trying to. She turned around and was like, oh, like, that was the whole thing. It was like, when she was going through the portal, she turned back to say, hey, send me back to before my parents died. But, which, again, is fine. But like I said, to treat it like it had to have the dream thing.
Yeah.
Like, that really kind of bothered me. Because I'm like, you wouldn't wake up in your bed after walking through this portal.
Yeah. But I will say, for me, though, I think, like, again, I thought her arc was kind of like she's gonna stick around and not run away from her parents' death, and like that's how she was gonna live her life. Like that was gonna make her a stronger person going forward. So like you kind of just,
that's a fair point,
backtracked on what her arc was supposed to be. But, and I will say, like, you know, I'm a huge Jumanji movie fan, the original Jumanji with Robin Williams,
of course,
and I have watched that movie 100 times, and I always crack up like at the end of that movie when Robin Williams and Bonnie
Bedelia. Isn't it Bonnie Bedelia?
What is her name? Oh man,
you were gonna.
This is horrible. But anyway, you find the name for me. But they're meeting the parents of the kids from the movie who died, and then the parents kind of say, "Hey, we're going on this winter trip," and then like Robin Williams and
Bonnie Hunt.
There it is. Bonnie Hunt. When Robin Williams and Bonnie Hunt just scream, "No! Like, you can't go. You're gonna die if you go on that." Like the way that they just explode and everybody freezes and scares the room. It's just hilarious to me every time I watch it. Yeah. And you kind of have them in this movie, like we're like, "Hey, we're gonna go get on our airplane," and you know, Courtney Cox like, "Don't do it." I'm like, I'm getting Jumanji vibes, but Jumanji was way funnier when it happened.
Well, yeah, and don't lie, you're never going to be able to talk your parents out of going to the Catalina wine mixer. It is the party of the year.
That's why she ends up just taking their keys and running away. So
you're not going to the Catalina wine mixer.
Okay, well, I think we've talked about everything that we wanted to touch on. We touched on a lot, and some good and some bad. So I will just say, we don't usually do this, and I'm not comparing the movies at this moment, but I do want to endorse...
Oh, you know you're going to do it.
I just want to endorse this new He-Man. It feels like it's going to flop financially.
I agree with
and I think there's a lot in the movie theater right now that people like, and that is a good thing.
Yeah.
But I would just say, go watch He-Man. Like, I want them to try a sequel and see and get one more bite at the apple here too. Go see it. Like, let's help make this movie some money.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that at all. Like I said, my only complaint is I do feel like it really wants to be Thor Ragnarok really hard, and like that, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. And it kind of goes back to what we've talked about earlier about why this movie was greenlit and what kind of a remake this really is.
Yeah.
But I do believe that a sequel could be very beneficial because it could allow it to kind of get past what it felt like it had to do to be a success.
Now it
you
can
know,
be
that
its own
copycat
thing.
kind of thing. Maybe that's maybe we can call it that. Maybe like a copycat remake or something like that. But anyway, I agree with you 100%. I'd love to see a sequel because I do feel like that there is more meat on this bone, which I will admit the 1987 one did not have. So I'm with you 100%. Go out and see He-Man. I think it would be it's worthwhile. It's fun, and I think you'll have fun with it.
Now I will say, I don't care if you go watch the 1986 version or 1987 version. I don't care. Like I still don't feel like I like that because
you don't like it anymore.
I like it more. I will say I definitely like it more than I used to.
I'll take that. Yes. That's a win.
But it won't go up ever again from this point.
That's fine. I mean, and that's totally fine.
And I just wish He-Man was better. Like Skeletor to me is good enough. I mean, I think if He-Man was funner and maybe one or two more side characters who are toys that I had.
Sure.
And that is very whiny of me to say, but that's just how I honestly
like
feel.
Leto whiny.
I can't help how I feel. But then maybe I would appreciate it a bit more. But like, just not enough He-Man in it for me.
Yeah, no, like I said, I can understand and it's hard to sometimes to overcome that nostalgia feeling because I mean, and the new one is driven very much by nostalgia. You know, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Like at times, it kind of depends on how you handle it. But like, I think it kind of pokes fun on it. At it a little bit, which works. But like I said, I have that nostalgic feeling for the 1987 version. You never did. We have multiple movies that we have these kind of battles with over time, like Howard the Duck, which is a classic.
Sure.
Don't. But yeah. But like I said, for me, go watch the remake of the 1987 one again. I think it's worth your time. But definitely head to the theater and see the new one as well.
All right, Rob. Well, I think that is it for this episode of A Copy of a Copy on Masters of the Universe and He-Man Masters of the Universe. I was glad we got to go revisit those and see one in the theater.
Yeah, first for us for this show.
Yeah, we've not gone to a theater and then immediately done the podcast, which is I was nervous because I didn't have my notes with me, but didn't want to take notes on my phone in the theater.
You were terrible, Ray. So just keep that in mind for next
time. But so we are done, but the audience is not done because they have the power. To help us and to hit the like button, to subscribe if they haven't subscribed to this channel before. Leave us a 5-star review if you do. We'll read it live on air someday. Email us at carrayrob at gmail.com. And don't forget you can reach out to us on Blue Sky at carrayrob.
Absolutely. You can now follow us also on Instagram and Facebook. Go ahead and go give us a like on both of those pages. It's the modern times. We have all the socials, as the kids say. So by all means, go do that. See all the great things we're doing. I don't know if we're hip. We're definitely with it. I don't know if we're hip, though. But if there is a comment section on whatever platform you're on, by all means, let us know what you thought of the 1987 and the new 2026 Masters of the Universe. Please tell Ray how wrong he is about the 1987 version.
I dare you.
I just want to see the look on his face when we see all those positive comments. We will be back next week, and it will be Ray's episode of Say Hello to My Little Film, and I'm very excited. He's on a big run, and the bar is high. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, and I'm feeling the pressure.
You are.
Let's see. I don't know if I can live up to it.
We're going to see. We're definitely going to see. And then we will be back in 2 weeks with this month's Hello Movies, My Old Friend, where Ray and I are going to be revisiting the Charlie Sheen, Lawrence Fishburne prison drama, Cadence.
Yes.
I'm very excited to rewatch this movie.
I'm really excited too.
I
was like, am I going to start singing the Chain Gang song right now? But then I was like, no, I'm not.
No, Ray, do not start singing, Ray. And then we will be back next month with a brand new episode of A Copy of a Copy, and we're going to be doing something super fun because it is my birthday month. So Ray and I have decided to do something we've wanted to do for a while, and that is revisit the 1984 sci-fi classic Dune, as well as the brand new Denis Villeneuve Part 1 and Part 2 of Dune.
We've read a ton of the books. We love Dune. When we first thought of A Copy of a Copy, Dune was very easily on the list of movies we were going to get to. We're finally getting to it.
Yeah, we're going to do another triple movie, not something we have done since Nosferatu, so we are very excited to do that. But you are not going to want to miss it. But until then, this is Car Ray Rob.
Where I'm Ray.
And I'm Rob. And remember, be defined by the films you love, not the ones you hate.
copy. A copy of a 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 copy.